Good morning. Hi, as Ruben said, my name's Robin. I'm going to be running our singles panel today, which is really exciting, starting off our series on Loveology. Loveology is actually a book written by John Mark Comer, looking at this whole kind of area of love and relationships, marriage and singleness. And actually, how do we do these things well, whatever season of life we're in? How do we come to know something of God's love for us? And how do we experience that and share that with other people? So this week, as I say, we've got a singles panel. I'm going to introduce them in a minute. We're going to be talking about some of the areas of singleness. Next week, Ollie and his lovely wife, Ali, they're going to be talking about marriage. And the week after that, Ruben, who's been leading our service today, he's going to be talking about the whole area of romance and of dating and of sex, which is great. So half of you literally just woke up right then. That's right, he's literally going to be talking about those issues. That's in 2 weeks' time, so if you're around, feel free to join us for that. So we're going to be talking about singleness today, and obviously we've just had Valentine's Day. Who enjoyed Valentine's Day this year? Who didn't really enjoy Valentine's Day? I had an absolute nightmare this Valentine's Day. Right, not only did the cards get lost in the mail again, it keeps happening again and again. We had a little bit of a tricky situation with who was going to be on the panel today. And it turned out that on Valentine's Day, I needed to find another single lady to help me with this panel. So it's Valentine's Day. I've got to ring a single lady to ask, would you please be on a single panel? Like, I'm not going to make it till Sunday. Literally the worst. This is my life, guys. So I rung Ollie, and I was like, what am I going to do? He's like, you just got to do it, mate. Just start ringing people. So I rung a good friend of mine who's here today, and I won't embarrass you because you're here. And I got a really bad signal, right, at my house. So I was ringing, and what I said was, hi, I'm going to be running a singles panel this week. Would you be keen to be on a panel? From what I can ascertain, what she heard was, hi, I'm single. Are you keen? Like, absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. And I just thought, why am I like? And there was like, send a quick message and say, because we ended up finding someone, so it was all fine. I sent a really quick message, which was like, she's going to listen to that in a minute, it's going to be terrible. Sent a quick message saying, don't worry, I found someone else and they're keen. Have a great day. And then obviously, because my brain is slower than my thumbs, I was like, no. And then it sent it and it was gone. But thankfully, this person was very gracious and thought the whole thing was hilarious. That's just to illustrate that being single, while it can be a real blessing and a real gift and an opportunity, it can also be really tricky and really challenging. So we're going to talk about some of that now with our panel. Can we have our panel up now? That'd be great. Can we welcome them? So we've got Teresa. Well, guys, so we've got Lizzie, we've got Teresa, and we've got Sam. Guys, take a seat. And actually, guys, it's kind of worth saying that, we're not experts. We're just kind of people. These seats really are a problem, aren't they? A bit swivelly. And, we're not experts. We're just people on the journey and seeking just to live life well and recognizing that actually God is the one who fulfills our ultimate needs and our ultimate desires. And as we look to him for wisdom, actually, whatever stage of life we're in, that God helps us and gives us strength. You might be here, you might be single. Actually, hands up if you are single in the room. That'd be really helpful. Nice and high, nice and high. If you guys could maybe look in. If you happen to see anyone that kind of like catches your eye, if there is maybe a slight twinkle, we've got plenty of tea and coffee at the back of church and cake, and feel free to make most use of that. And you can thank me later. So guys, couple of questions we kind of want to look at. Firstly, we've mentioned that singleness it is a real gift. Might not feel like it sometimes, but it's a real opportunity. In what ways, for you guys, has singleness been a gift and a blessing, and how have you found God in that? Sam, why don't you go first? You've got the mic, and
okay.
Go from there.
Oh, hi everyone. I'm Sam. So I think the biggest blessing of being single, I think for me, has just been time. So I have been single for almost 2 years now, and I guess the biggest thing is just having the time to like spontaneously do anything you want to do. I think of myself as quite an ambitious person, so I don't know, I try to run different things at the same time. I do music, I do just little stuff on the side, so I can sort of like do whatever I want and spontaneously try anything. And I think that is a big thing for me. And I think also being single gives you time to really learn about yourself, learn about God, learn about what you want in a relationship. And yeah, those are the biggest things for me, being single.
Thank you. Teresa, why don't you maybe share a little bit about your story and what are some of the blessings of singleness for you?
Yeah, so I've been single for most of my adult life, actually, so about 20 years. And definitely one of the major pluses is just a huge amount of freedom. So freedom in really big things and in little things. A couple of weeks ago, I was absolutely exhausted on a Saturday. I slept until 11 o'clock in the morning. The same morning, I got a text from a friend who's got 2 kids and a husband, and she was like, "Oh my God, my husband took my children today, and I slept until 8." And I was like, "Oh, how our lives have diverged." So just freedom in little things, but also freedom in big things. When I was preparing for this, I was reflecting about how I've made some of the massive decisions that I've made in my life. A few years ago, I decided to move to the Dominican Republic. I applied for that job before I knew where the Dominican Republic was. And it was a done deal in 2 weeks. You know, I went to the interview, I decided I was going to do it. I actually spoke to a few of my single friends about it, and then it was done. The next day, I handed in my notice, and within 3 months, I was in a new country. And I have never really considered, actually, what that would have been like if I'd had 2 kids and a husband. It would have been a very different experience, yeah. So just this huge amount of freedom and flexibility, as Sam says, you know, being super spontaneous as well, I think is a major blessing.
Yeah. So we've got time, we've got freedom, so a sense of calling and career. Lizzie, how about you?
So my situation is a little bit different. In that I got divorced about 3.5 years ago, and I'm now dating, so I don't know if I should even be on this panel. But I think that you are single until you're married, and that's what I believe in, that actually this is really relevant to all of us who are dating, and things only really change when you get married. So my priorities are still my priorities. Life does not stop when you start dating someone. You know, my work, my kids, they're still important to me. In terms of benefits, time, hugely. Even though I'm a single parent and kids, the rest of my time completely can choose what I do with it, what I pick up. But also, money has to be in there. I choose whether I am really tight or totally over budget, you know, totally overspend. And the only person that affects is me. I've kind of learned, and this is my passage as well, that I need to be transparent with my money, with God, because actually in marriage you are with another imperfect human being, and then that's a nightmare if you overspend or you're super tight. So, and the only other thing I would say is actually the amazing thing about singleness is you get to know and love yourself. You get to know and love yourself better. Your relationships will only ever be as good as your singleness. They're never going to be any better. So if you are incomplete and broken single, you're going to meet with another broken human being and have a broken marriage instead. Or if your self-control isn't great in your singleness, if you struggle with porn in your singleness, you know, there are mighty things that, you know, you can struggle with. It's not going to be cured by getting married. So your relationships will only ever be as good as your singleness. So I'm really excited we're talking about this.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I just think that's just really key as well. You know, we're talking about a sense of time, we're talking about money, and actually just the whole opportunity we've got, particularly if you are single here today, that actually we've got a chance to work on our character and to grow. So actually, if we do get to that point, if it's God's will and that's God's calling for us to meet someone and get married, actually, instead of taking from them, you end up just being able to bless them because, you've sorted whatever it is out, and actually you can say, I'm coming into this relationship not to take, but actually to give. And that's wonderful, and it creates healthy marriages, which is amazing. Also, probably worth just saying, it's really easy, particularly if you're single here, to kind of really press in. If you're not single here, actually this is so relevant because chances are you're going to have loads of single people in your life, and it's really helpful to know, what are some of the issues facing single people. Particularly if you've got children, you're going to be looking after children who are single and are probably going to be single for quite a long period. So particularly as parents as well, get the opportunity to think, how can I help my child who's single to live and get the most out of being single and to become the most fullest version of themselves that they can be. That being said, singleness can be really great and be a real blessing, but it can be a real challenge at times as well, as I've already shared a little bit with a few complications of being single. Guys, why don't you maybe talk to us a little bit about what are some of the challenges of being single for you in your kind of stage of life and as you've kind of gone through the season, and how have you met God in that? What has God taught you? What has God spoken to you about that could maybe help some of us today?
Okay, so for me, I think the biggest challenge is if you have been in a relationship before, you sometimes miss the companionship of the other person. Sometimes you'll be struggling with something, and normally you have someone to talk to, someone you can complain about, complain to, not about, complain to. I study medicine. Sometimes that can be stressful, and I can just rant to the person about a difficult day I've had, and sometimes you miss that, and so that's a challenge. Also, a big thing, being young and social media, that you notice the society and social media kind of glorifies being in a relationship. So it was Valentine's Day the other day, and my Instagram was just crazy, just loads of stuff was happening on social media, and you kind of feel like you're not moving ahead with your life. You just feel like, I can see my other friends doing X and Y on Valentine's Day, but I was at home, I was watching Spider-Man. So there's the challenges, I would say, but that's how I feel sometimes. In terms of managing it, it's very Christian, very Christianese, I would say, but I just have to realize that you're not alone. So there's that whole phrase, you're single, you're not alone. That's exactly it. If you just think of a simple verse, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, and you just think about how it says, even though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, fear no evil, for God is with you. His staff comforts you. So just having that in your head and just catch yourself thinking that. So every time you think, oh, I'm a bit sad, I'm single, then I catch that thought in my head and I just delete it straight away. So that'll be the best way. And I guess practically just finding stuff to do with your friends, just have fun, watch Spider-Man if you like Spider-Man, Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, mate. Teresa.
Yeah, so I think the challenge of singleness, one of the challenges is almost the exact opposite of all this freedom that you've got, is that you don't actually have any natural accountability. If I don't want anybody to, I can arrange my life so that no one gets to peek under the hood of my life. There's nobody who sees me grumpy on a Monday morning. I get to do that on my own. There's nobody, when I'm watching Netflix and eating chocolate and feeling sorry for myself, there's nobody to come and sort of see that actually happening. And so you don't have that kind of automatic community that sees you on a daily basis. You have to create that. So you have to go out and you have to create deep friendships. And actually, it's a really interesting thing. The whole Valentine's Day thing is really interesting. When I was at university, one of my friends at uni gave all of her friends Valentine's Day presents. And we were all like, wow, that's weird. But having moved away to a different country, I realised that we're the weird ones, actually, because for us, Valentine's Day is exclusively about romantic love. And in other countries, it's actually about friendship and romantic love. We have quite a shallow version sometimes of friendship in this country, and we think, well, you've got your family and you've got your friends, and family always trumps friendship. But actually, you can create really deep, really meaningful friendships with other people. And those become the people who peek under the hood of your life, actually, and go, I notice you're doing this, and maybe we need to talk about that. And that's actually really, really important. You do sometimes feel alone, and that sometimes means that you feel lonely. But I think it's important to sort of remember that everybody feels alone and lonely sometimes. You can be a married person and have moments of feeling alone and lonely. And that as a single person, I think it's interesting, sort of coming up here today, you sort of get a snapshot of my singleness, but actually in 6 months' time, you might ask me a question. I might respond quite differently in the same way that your marriages, you know, those of you who are married are not all sort of plain sailing, and the answer that you give on how it's going one day might be very different, you know, in 6 months' time. So there are ups and downs with it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a scripture for us as well?
Oh, yeah, I totally did. Well done, Robin. That's why he's in charge. So, so Robin asked us to think about scriptures, and I actually came up with Psalm 23, verse 1. Now, I learned this scripture when I was very small, in the very old-fashioned version. So, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And in my brain, that was always kind of future-y. It put the not wanting anything somehow into the future tense. And a few years ago, I came across it in the NIV, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. And I was massively challenged by that. I think it's challenging not just in singleness, but actually whenever we're going through a difficult anything. Actually, Psalm 23 challenges us to say, actually, Jesus is with me and he is leading me, and that means right here and right now, I actually have everything that I need. So Sam's idea of actually sort of those thoughts that come to attack you, actually sort of grabbing them quite quickly and challenging them with a scripture, deleting them, not allowing them to take root, I think is a really good one, actually.
Yeah. I love actually what we've already shared today about, you know, being in a battle. You kind of just illustrated that. Sometimes you feel, you know, it could be so easy to be so self-centered and so self-focusing. Oh, I'm so lonely and this is difficult. But I love how you're saying, actually, you know what, to turn that around and be God-focused and be others-focused. Actually, I could be so worried about, oh, me. But actually, you know what, you know, there's other people out there, and actually, they may need, you know, something of God's Spirit, which is working through me and creating community. And I think, like, partly for me as well, like, one of the blessings of being single is that I've just got time just to create community, and it's very much something that's close to my heart. You know, some people are called to marriage and called to build family. A big part of my heart is that I just feel God's called me to create community and to create family for people actually who might not have it, and I'm really looking for that. And really the last kind of 15 years of my life has just been about kind of creating communities. Part of me moving to Plymouth felt God was saying, just to start a young adults kind of group, and we started that a couple of years ago, and now there's maybe 3 or 4 different groups around, and it's just such a privilege just to see people who have maybe never had, you know, brothers or sisters, or maybe not had a really good relationship with brothers or sisters, actually to find real meaningful, as you were saying, like spiritual brothers and sisters, and spiritual mums and dads, and actually it's often the case, it kind of lost the count of the amount of people who kind of end up, you know, kind of saddling up next to each other, and you think, oh yeah, I kind of see what's going on there. And you know, and they end up, you know, getting together or falling in love and getting together. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but you know, next week Ollie and Ali's talk of marriage, maybe they'll clear that one up. And but it's amazing, and you get to journey with these people. And most of my friends now are married, have got kids, and I love playing the role of the fun uncle. That's great, and actually just being able to bring life to them, and actually something of the economy of the kingdom. Actually, when you start giving and you start loving others, you begin to receive something of that back yourself. So others focus and God focus. That's amazing. Lizzie, sorry, take it away.
So challenges in being single, our culture, our film culture, our music culture tells us we are incomplete if we don't have a guy. Yeah? No. And I don't think that's true. I think we're completely complete in Jesus. Jesus fully knows me, fully loves me. I am fully known by God. But that's not backed up by what I watch and what I'm surrounded by. So you watch a rom-com and it's all about infatuation. Yeah? When does a rom-com continue into marriage? It kind of misses the main point of dating, which is till death do us part, not to the wedding day, but it's looking further down the line. Marriage is hard work, and it's quite hard to admit that, because the majority of people in the room, it's the person sitting next to them that they're having to say that about. But do you know what? A divorce is even worse. 42% of marriages end in divorce, and yet we spend years and tens of thousands of pounds on our wedding day, and we spend maybe one morning on some marriage prep. Would you get on a plane that had like a 42% chance of crashing? So I think our culture doesn't help with the infatuation, because it's just looking at the very beginning. And ladies, I would say pick wisely. Don't pick a guy with potential. He's potentially broken, and you're potentially going to get in that mix together till death do you part. And what Sam said, I found so helpful, again, with the kind of single, not alone, just that one statement is so helpful. I am surrounded by friends and family. I haven't been lonely in my singleness, and I was so lonely in my marriage. Single, not alone, is such an important statement. My verse, does it come up? No? Okay, I read it off my phone. No? Okay, so my verse is, fix your thoughts on Jesus, for the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of the soul and the spirit, of joints and of marrow, and discerning the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. It's that thoughts and attitudes, discerning the thoughts and attitudes of your heart. I just think is so important. What we focus on is important, isn't it? Whether if we're married, if that focus should be on each other and on God. And in our singleness, nail your focus on God when you've got that time and that more ability to do that and get that right. And to quote Deborah Searle, I don't know if she's here, listen to her vlog, it's really helpful. We can choose what we think. We are the thinkers of our thoughts. And that really highlights something big, doesn't it? Because what we think affects what we feel, which then affects what we act and what we do, and that will determine our focus. And yet we get to choose what we think. We get to choose those attitudes. You know, our thoughts and our attitudes are what change everything.
Yeah, and I think that really links in as well what you were saying about like what society tells us, because what we believe ends up being, what we think, and that's a kind of narrative of how we kind of live. And I think as well, like, you were saying about, that narrative and what society tells us, even Disney, happily ever after will only come if you meet this person. And actually what's so almost like deceptive about that lie is that, and the reason often I think a lot of us believe it is because there's always an element of truth in those kind of things, that actually we are all seeking love, to love and to be loved and to be known. That's something that God has wired within us. There's this quote, and I just really want to finish with this. Marshall Seeger, in his book, Not Yet Married, The Pursuit of Joy in Singleness and Dating, he says this: "The problem is not that we are hungry, but that we're hunting in the wrong pantry or the wrong fridge. The cravings deep inside us are actually a mercy from God, meant to lead us to Him. God is trying to give us unconditional love, indescribable joy, and unparalleled purpose. But many of us are just trying to get married. God is the one who has wired our appetites, intense, biological, emotional, sexual, spiritual, unavoidable desires into every human soul so that He could fill them." And I think, partly what we've been saying is about actually, God is the one, He's the one who created love. And if He is the one who's created it, He is the one who knows how to get the most out of it. And as we follow Him and seek to draw near to Him, allowing Him to fill us with His presence, fill us with His love, we can live. If you're single here now and you're living a life of singleness, you can live that life to the full now. And if you're called to either singleness for the short term or the long term, or marriage, actually, whichever season of life we're in, when we're putting God first and making Him our primary source, we can begin to experience healthy relationships in whatever context that is. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Can we give them a massive round of applause? Thank you so much.